Hey, everybody, it's Chris from the Chattanooga Film Festival, which you know because you're attending right now. That's not a surprise to you. But I did want to personally give a greeting to you here. I'm your moderator tonight for a chat that I've been looking forward to for a bit here. We're extremely happy this evening to have an opportunity to chat with one of our favorite writers who's well on his way to becoming one of our favorite filmmakers. And Dustin and our entire team here know this, but if Benjamin Percy's name appears on anything in any medium, I'm pre-signed up for it now. Ben's Comet Cycle novels are incredible, and I've seen everyone, folks praising him as the Stephen King of science fiction. And Ben's writing in the medium of comics has breathed dark and incredibly metal new life into iconic characters from Wolverine to my personal favorite, Ghost Rider. He's in fact the man who dared to ask the question, what if we combined Ghost Rider and Wolverine and called it Helverine? A kind of decision that, quite frankly, this festival exists to celebrate. And Bennett's really just given us some amazing genre storytelling across multiple mediums. So it made total sense that we had an opportunity to talk to him, and we took a chance to deep dive into his incredible short film 13th Night that's premiering this week. So without any further yammering from me, I would love to welcome Mr. Benjamin Percy, and we're going to talk to him a bit about the film.
Hey, thanks so much for chatting with me. I'm looking forward to the film festival, and you said so many sweet things about me just now that I'm blushing beneath my beard.
I'm sorry. We're like not compliment folks ourselves, so we never know how people are going to feel when we just completely, kiss their ass for 10 minutes in our intros. But that's what this is about for us.
My icy heart is melting right now.
That's beautiful. That started mine to go in too. So we'll get a good cry out before this thing is over. But yeah, I guess for one of the things that we love is when filmmakers send in director statements to give us some context for how their project began. And we've seen some really great ones this year, especially. We don't know what was in the water, but some really great ones came through. And to me, yours instantly put the world of your film into context for me. And I didn't know if I could get you to talk about a little bit about the inspiration for it, for anybody that didn't have the benefit of reading that director statement and understanding the insane real life wages of fear situation that you were in that made this idea spring to mind.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said that if you're writing a fantastic scenario, it doesn't matter how, gross your squid aliens are, or how extraordinary your time travel device might be, or how scary your vampire train is, or like none of that stuff matters if you don't have a beating heart at the center of your story. So I was thinking about that when I set out to make 13th Night. I was thinking about what actually scared me and what could give you something beyond eeriness, beyond shock, beyond fear. What could give you something that felt like a blood beat beneath it all that you could relate to and empathize with. So people are oftentimes asking me, because I write a lot of horror, what are you afraid of? And I have my jokey answers, like, I'm scared of sharks, or I'm scared of clowns, or dentists, or, God forbid, a clown shark.
Shark, I was just going to go to the same place. So, yeah.
New franchise right there.
Yep. Write that down.
But what I'm actually afraid of is one thing, and that's something happening to my kids. And when my son was younger, he had a lot of breathing issues. His throat was undeveloped. Every time that he got sick, he tended to develop croup, and his just air passages would close right up. One of the worst memories that I have is me watching him, just this, 13-month-old kid, put on a gurney, lifted up into the back of an ambulance. His face is turning blue. The doors close, and I have to follow him in my car through a blizzard to the hospital. And I don't know if by the time I arrive, if he's going to be intubated, if he's going to be alive at all. This happened several times in and out of the ICU, and it scars me. I mean, fast forward, spoiler alert, he's now an obnoxious teenager. Everything's fine, right? But that fear is still in me. And so that was, I thought, a good place to start. That foundation of fear that I can absolutely relate to. I think everyone can relate to, whether you have kids or not. Is that somebody that you love is in danger, and the character who is the one we follow through this story, Jacob, played by Benjamin Bush. He's caught up in kind of a Faustian bargain where he'll do anything to protect his kid. Anything.
Man, gotta give some more love to Benjamin Bush since you brought him up. Just does such an incredible job in this short. The man goes from literally murdering someone in the opening moments to becoming a believably warm father to wielding a machete like a badass in mere moments of this film. And I always loved him, I've known him obviously since The Wire. I'm curious how he got brought into this project. If he's somebody you always had in mind, if you were previously acquainted, how'd you go about the casting?
Yeah, so Benjamin Bush and I know each other way back. He's a writer as well. He's a Renaissance man. He's a painter. He studied at Tisch Studio Art. He has directed. He's an actor. He's a musician. And anyways, we've known each other for maybe 15 years. And I had him in mind when I was writing this role because I wanted this character to be a weary sort of warrior. And Benjamin Bush, in addition to all those things I said about him, he's also a decorated veteran. He's a Marine.
So there's a question for you. Is that uniform we see hanging up in the closet in that moment that just does such a great, Hitchcockian job of giving us his backstory in that one little moment there? Is that his actual uniform that makes a cameo? That's awesome.
His K-bar knife is hanging on that wall of weapons. He learned how to do all those knife tricks that he exhibits.
That's so hilariously, there's a theme of knife tricks in CFF films this year. You'll see it when you're on the ground. We don't know how that kismet worked out, but you mentioned the wall of weapons. That's another thing for you. There are so many great shots in this film. There's the wall of weapons. There's the moment where Ben is washing his hands. We get that incredible reflection. I know you definitely storyboarded this out, and you have an incredible DP, another Ben. Pronounce his last name for me.
Lots of Bens in this. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of Bens.
Ben Enke is the DP.
Enke. Okay, I didn't want to butcher his last name because I think he did such an incredible job. And obviously, you come, with quite a bit of experience in the comics background. I know that's a very visual medium and a very different discipline writing that way. Do you find that having that experience in the comics medium kind of, helped you into making your transition to film now?
Absolutely. I feel like I've started directing at exactly the right moment in my life. In part because of my apprenticeship, let's say, in comics. When you're writing comics, you are breaking things down panel by panel according to the most compelling visuals. And it's like taking a film reel and scissoring it up and taping together the most interesting images. And so on a daily basis, writing for Marvel, this is what I'm doing. I'm storyboarding. I'm talking to an artist in the same way that I talk to Ben Enke, my DP. And in talking to him, we had just like this mind meld going on where I would say, okay, here's this storyboard that we drew out. I had my friend Matt Bowers, who's a great artist, draw out all these storyboards. Here's how we're breaking this down. And here's what I want this film to have. It's like a sense of him being isolated. Because as you get deeper and deeper into the movie, you're not quite sure whether this is all happening inside of his skull or if there's actually a supernatural occurrence at work. So I wanted him to feel isolated. I wanted him to feel trapped. I wanted the sort of lighting aesthetic to be, I don't know, I was giving Ben Enke samples like, the Boogeyman, the recent Rob Savage film.
It was such a great adaptation.
Where there's these islands of light surrounded by velvety black darkness. And we're talking to Ben Enke, he's like, okay, let's come up with like frames within frames. Like almost every shot you have like him through a doorway or something. So it just like continues to contain him. Or the idea of using reflections because the agent is sort of a parallel character who might be a projection of self right? Or projection of like his inner wounds. And so there's this parallelism between them. They'll be standing on either side of a doorway, looking at one another, or sitting down at the table at the exact same moment. In the same way, Jacob's oftentimes looking into mirrors. He's looking into a rear view mirror in his vehicle. He's looking into that bathroom mirror that you were talking about before, and that idea of like duplicity is captured just through the framing, just through the use of mirrored surfaces, like the ones that exist behind them in the table scene. And anyways, that just gives you, a little bit of sense of how I was talking to Ben Enke and what he was bringing to a table, which felt a lot like the way I work with comic artists.
Man, you mentioned Matt Bowers. I think another fascinating thing that I have to mention since we're chatting is, Matt not only did your storyboards, he recorded your sound and kind of make your sound design happen and scored the film. So I think it's really cool that you have, obviously we see a lot of folks in independent productions wearing a lot of hats, but the folks that wore those hats in your film create this just incredible confluence of ideas, and the sound is great. This is one that, like, if you're watching this film virtually at home this week, I just let me go ahead and recommend you throw some headphones on and really like immerse yourself into the world of 13th Night. It's really terrific. And you brought up The Agent, who played by Nat Wilson, another really terrific performance here. An amazing job, especially considering that Nat basically has to deliver his lines telepathically. And, to me, the appearance of that character evokes everything from a lot of things I love. Like, for the example, the appearance of Herc Harvey, the filmmaker of Carnival of Souls, as the man in that film, his look there. It feels like there's even some Twin Peaksiness in there, maybe not just with his name being The Agent, but I feel like there's a moment where Jacob, pushes aside a curtain that even has some Black Lodge style lines on it. And there's just a lynchiness of spirit about it. So I'm curious if there were any, films or pieces of music, even as you were working with Bowers, or even comic books that were sort of a touchstone for you as you were giving those guys the visual language you wanted to put this together with.
Yeah, I mean, so much to talk about there, including just another shout out to Matt Bowers, who's really a, Swiss Army knife of a human being and can do everything well, including he's the one responsible for building that murder board. That's another question I have for you coming up that we'll get into for sure. That murder board is art. Yeah, that's the most metal thing I've seen this year. So yes, yeah, we can talk more about that later. But with Nat Wilson playing the agent, part of it was creative constraint, and that's one of the things that was inspiring about this entire production is that when you're making a short film, you only have so much pocket change, right?
Right.
So what can you do? What's the most you can do with the least amount? And I knew because I approached people. I approached some VFX people. I approached some special effects guys. And I was like, can you build me a monster? And they're like, yeah, for $10,000. and I didn't have $10,000 for a monster. So what I did was I looked at films and thought about what is an everyday monster that is nonetheless, one that doesn't rely on like Pumpkinhead level effects, or a build, like what is, or a Pinhead or whatever, like what's something that really upsets me to this day that didn't use a lot of, crazy latex and pins and, gore and whatever. So the tall man from Phantasm.
Big one for us too. Absolutely.
The mystery man from Lost Highway.
Oh God, Robert Blake was another one of those Lynch pieces of DNA that I was feeling in there. I love it.
And the preacher, I'm spacing on his name right now, but the preacher from Poltergeist 2.
It's not Kane, is it?
No, that's right.
Yeah. Love that character. Such a terrifying presence and with the creepiest voice of all time. Love him.
The way he's singing those hymns as he walks along the side.
Yeah.
But Nat has a really interesting face. He has kind of like a senatorial face on the one hand, but his eyes are completely black. Like you can't distinguish between his pupil and iris. He has shark eyes. And so,
That's a trait that's going to serve him well as he does future horror films, I hope.
so it just like the bone structure, like he looks like a politician or a businessman, but then if you look a little closer, there's something upsetting there. And so like I wanted to play around with that, and the idea of like making him even more bony because he has a pronounced jaw, he has pronounced cheekbones, and I thought if I took away those eyebrows, like the Mystery Man,
works so well for me. Instantly creates an uncanny valley when eyebrows are gone.
Like he looks human, but not. And it enhances the skull-like qualities of his face. So it makes like a handsome face into something that is unsettling. And there's a ghoulish pallor to him that Amy Dills, our makeup artist, applied, and the slick back hair and everything. It's like a kind of an oil slick of hair, but just a black suit, and that was almost all it took. I added in this little bit of flair with the American flag tie.
I love that. I was going to ask you about that as well. Yeah. I really. Yeah.
So I think in working for comics, right, I'm constantly doing designs with artists, and like in Ghost Rider, one of my favorites was Talia Warroad, and I think we might talk about her later. But I also co-created this character that was sort of like a amalgamation of Johnny Blaze, the Ghost Rider, and like a bike. He's like this,
It's like Exhaust, right? Is that
Exhaust? Yeah, he's just
the coolest character design. I wish I could put a screenshot of it up. Literally, that was my background on my iPad when that issue came out. Like one of the best covers of any comic I've ever seen, too. Like love that.
Breathe out this black smoke,
Yeah,
like exhaust, and then it'll inhabit people and turn them into possessions. But now I knew I just needed one more thing, and I decided on an American flag tie. Just because I feel like you could just silhouette that character, and that's one of the things you learn in comics is like the best characters. I think this is true of horror films as well. The best character designs you can recognize as a silhouette. So if you just have like that Mad Men silhouette with like the American flag tie, it's like there's the agent, instant recognition. And with the American flag tie and the business suit, what I was trying to think of was, a character who might reflect the inner turmoil of our lead. So our character is this weary warrior. He is a vet, as is evidenced by the dialogue. He and the agent have been working together for a long time, long time. And there are uniforms in addition to the Marine blues in his closet. Like there's stuff going back to World War I. And some of the weapons on his wall go back to like Spartan times.
That's so awesome.
There's like this implication that maybe this has been going on for a while. Maybe he's that good at killing. And that's just one of those things that's around the periphery that doesn't even get addressed directly. But
I got to say, the amount of world building that went into this at being 14 minutes essentially in length is nuts, too, because I feel like you also have that kind of implied bureaucracy. Like, is the agent an agent of death? Like, you get that Beetlejuice, like, fill out the paperwork in triplicate. Here's your handbook to being dead. Kind of a vibe off it. Maybe even like some of Terry Gilliam's, like, Paper Choke Society of Brazil. It just all implied in that one character, and I really, really love that. Like, I love that you're adding those little visual flourishes to give us that background because
maybe in another time he would have been dressed in like, Roman robes or the gear of the Vatican or something. Like, if he went back through time. Like, what would he be dressed? So in this moment, he's dressed in sort of like what I considered to be like the uniform of, the American war machine.
Right.
He's like a gargoyle of like American capitalism and power.
I love that. Man, I have to say also the editing here. You talked about, the discipline of comics and kind of scissoring things up. Did that help you also in communicating with your editor, who we got to give Mr. Ullman some props here? Not only is the film incredibly edited, David's trailer for the movie is so good. You've now got, Paul Tremblay and Stephen King tweeting it out, talking about how fucking cool it looks. And it does, man. So what was the experience like talking with David? Kind of that same shorthand that you saw with Ben Hincke?
Yeah. So David and I would work together. and we'd sit in my basement and we'd go through things. And we worked on another short before this one that nobody will probably ever see. It was just one of those things that, you know, we shot it in 7 hours. We used iPhones, and it was like a way to practice to get ready for a budgeted short. And just immediately, David and I synced up, and he's just so instinctual, and he was able to be like, I think I know what's in your brain. But he'd do that, but then he'd add in other stuff on top of that and say, what do you think of this? And so it's just a fantastic collaboration with him. And, you know, you hear that a lot, right? I'm sure you've heard like that rule that like a story is written when the script is made, and a story is written during production, but then the story is made in the editing room as well. And the editor might be, you know, the ultimate author really of a story. So you know, in this case, I've got a fantastic co-pilot. It was really fun to just scissor this all up. You know, it's only a 14-minute film, but as anybody who's made movies knows, like there's a lot of stuff that you shoot that doesn't end up in it. And so being able to like cycle through all of that and figure out the best takes and where to cut and go over the shoulder and like that is you know, the skill set of a wizard.
You know, and we got to take things back to talking about that wall of weapons. Of course, that's something now that, you know, as you kind of alluded to in your last answer, and something that I like now want to go back after we're done here and just pause that moment and take a look at that wall, knowing that you're kind of learning a bit more about Jacob's history there. What was the process of building that wall? Because you get a hell of a lot of information
right now as you talk, because I'm just looking at some of the weapons.
I was going to say also, like, did you go to Costco and just, you know, purchase a bunch of knives at the same time? Or like, I would, if you didn't have a set of Wolverine claws just hanging out in your living room, I'd be disappointed. I want you to know. So
I have to have Wolverine claws within reach.
Yeah.
But these
makes sense, you know, man. That's a quality life choice. Yeah.
These are the real deal, if you can hear them.
That's nuts.
But there's an Easter egg, and these are hanging on the wall of weapons.
I wondered if I saw them. That's awesome. Yeah.
You know, I built this disturbing piece of machinery right here. That's hanging from the wall.
I love it, man.
Some nice lag screws right there.
So some trips to the hardware store where they might have asked hard questions about what you were buying or why you were buying it, as is the case with all independent productions. So gotta love that.
And I gotta say, you know, but Benjamin Bush is a blacksmith.
Is he? Of course he is.
Among his many talents, he's a blacksmith. And so that Spartan sword was a gift to me. He gave that to me a few years ago. You can actually see the Spartan helmet that he blacksmithed as well up in the background.
Oh, that's so cool.
And he never tells me. It's just like I open up my door and there's like a huge package sitting there, and I open it up and there's like a sword in
medieval weaponry inside. Like, all right.
But so that's on the wall. That helmet is in the closet as well, above his uniforms. But Benjamin Bush has like a massive arsenal. And so when he drove from Michigan to Minnesota, going 100 miles an hour the whole way,
just don't get pulled over in that van. You know, there's some questions you're not going to be able to answer.
I was like, you are going to be in prison.
Man,
get pulled over. The
not
murder.
Great. And, you know, obviously knowing that there's even lore in that wall now makes me want to know, you know, how did you go about mapping out this lore? Obviously, you talked about little details like the tie there, but there's so much in every moment. Was there did you have a Bible for the universe of this movie? It also makes me wonder if there's any plan to expand it to a feature. Because I do feel like, you know, obviously with that character potentially existing, you know, Highlander style through time, that's something that I would desperately love to see. So,
yeah. So to touch just a little bit more on the murder wall before I get into the rest of it, the weapons, as you'll notice, are all bladed. And the idea behind that is, one, I didn't want to have any firearms on set. You know, just given what happened with Rust and everything.
Absolutely.
This is not the time for that. And also just the Reaper mythology, right? That you would use bladed weapons, and it just goes along with the aesthetic of a character who, like, he hurts as much as the victims. You can just see it in him. You know, he exacts a toll. he carries the weight of their pain with him. And I showed you.
I was going to say, like, along those lines, sorry to interrupt you, is just like, I feel like there's a lot of monkey's paw back there too, because he's not giving his daughter this quality of life. The deal is to keep her heart beating. And I thought that was such a chilling touch. So I really love hearing how fleshed out all of that was.
Yeah, I mean, it's a short movie, but I just imagined this much larger thing beyond it. I mean, that's sort of like the spirit of the story, in that would I be perfectly satisfied if this was it? I mean, this scratched an itch for me.
Right.
13th Night, like, so satisfying. I'm really proud of it. I really had such a great time working with everybody on it. But there's that hope, right? That this is a beginning. And so you write the short with that beginning in mind, that this could become something bigger. And I'm going out there, coming to Chattanooga, and I'm hopefully going to be, hitting up the festival circuit beyond Tennessee. And I've got scripts with me, scripts I want to shoot. And one of them is a feature-length version of 13th Night.
I'm really happy to hear that.
So I've got, they're all low budget, but some are low budget, like $3 million dreams, and others are low budget, like $50,000 dreams. And we'll see what we can do. But this larger mythology, I mean, in a way, you talked about Highlander, but I've been writing Wolverine for what, 2017?
A man who's been around for no one knows. Yeah.
I've written these 2 10-episode podcast seasons of Wolverine. I've written 130 plus issues of Wolverine. Like, he's in me. He's always been in me. He's my favorite comics character. And so there are elements of Logan in Jacob.
I was really happy to see him performing the exorcism on Johnny Blaze too. Like, if he was going to come into Ghost Rider, that was the absolute way to bring him in. And
pops his claw and shoves it right into his skull and rips out that demonic parasite.
Love that. I have to know, what was the pitch meeting for Helverine like? Just because, I mean, hopefully they just rubber stamped that and sent you on your way, for God's sake.
That was the easiest pitch of all time. Because
I thought so. Yeah,
I hope Wolverine, so. I'm writing Ghost Rider. I'm like, what if?
Beautiful.
And they're like, sold.
That's awesome, man. I also have to say, like, you did such an incredible job continuing the Aliens universe with Aftermath, your one shot, which is another thing that if you're watching and you have a comic store around you, you should absolutely try to seek it out. It's really terrific.
Thank you. I'm not more, so I'm writing Predator now, that all those 20th century monsters.
Can you announced it today? Can we talk about Black Panther versus Predator? Because you did a terrific Wolverine versus Predator too. And I have to say, I was a little initially terrified about Disney ending up with all of Fox's properties. But what's been happening with things like Predator and Aliens in comics form right now, I think we're getting some of the best storytelling in those worlds in a while. And you're one of the people responsible for that, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as Disney bought 20th Century Fox, I instantly, like the second I saw the headline, I was texting an email in Marvel. I was like,
let me write Wolverine versus Predator. Let him fight Wolverine versus Predator.
Let me write Aliens. I was like, I have an Alien story that is like in between Alien 3 and Aliens.
Oh, it's so good, man.
I have an Aliens 2.5 or whatever. And then with Wolverine versus Predator, they said no. And I said, please. And what I started to end up doing is I had a timer on my phone, and every 3 months it would go off and I would just say, give me Wolverine versus
You would
Predator.
just Andy Dufresne it, writing for books for the prison library, just firing off one more to make that project. And now obviously they're happy with how that went. If Black Panther versus Predator is any indication, like, I understand that you're continuing the world a little bit there. So it's actually continuing.
I'm going to have these minis that continue to build a larger story about how the Yautja, if you're not.
Love that.
Giant nerd, you don't know that the Yautja is the Predator,
Yeah. And also a terrific metal band from Nashville, by strange coincidence. But yeah, I love knowing the actual name of the species. That's one of those things at bar nerd trivia that I can occasionally wield like a sword. But
and And so the Yautja exists in the 616 now, and I'm able to build. I can't say what else is coming, but let's just say,
wouldn't want you to. Yeah, it's been
like,
great
we've got
to
Black
be
Panther
surprised.
now, and there's a build there, right? Like with Wolverine, it was the hunt for a man or a mutant, right? But this one is the battle for a kingdom, because if you think about that Wakandan shield, right?
Yeah.
If the predators, the Yautja, are able to control that, and their technology is very similar with the cloaking device, the way that shield works and has hid Wakanda for so long, like, not only does that become a hunting preserve, but vibranium, is a metal that the Yautja would covet because of its,
no question. Incredible.
they're obsessed with weapons. So it makes sense to go from Wolverine to this, and then the next one is even crazier.
I have to wonder also, you brought her up earlier, and I loved the part she played in the Ghost Rider run, Talia Warroad. Are we going to see Talia again? Is that something you can say? If not, I understand. But
I sure hope so.
Loved her whole
Talia
backstory.
is like one of the things I'm most proud of.
Yeah.
My time on Ghost Rider is, this character who's sort of like a shadow of Johnny, and they're both really wounded people. And they complement each other, and they sort of heal each other and find understanding in one another, and travel these dark highways. At first,
it's nice when broken people can meet other broken people.
Right? Broken edges that just fit, though.
Yeah, I love her so much. I'm so happy that to hear that there might be something in the future for her. And you mentioned your other screenplays and projects. Something that I would be remiss if I did not bring up during our conversation here is you're one of the folks behind the Paramount Plus reimagining of what I believe personally to be one of the most underrated efforts in the post Welcome Back Kotter, John Travolta oeuvre, which is Urban Cowboy. Can you tell us anything about how that project is shaping up, or how you got involved with it?
Yeah, and it's just like a sidebar. I've been a WGA member of the Screenwriters Union since 2014, and in working on TV projects and working on feature projects as a writer, it's one of the things that has frustrated me and made me want to be a director, because I just see how so many things almost happen and then don't, stein in development hell, or how you waste so much time looking for a director, 6 months, 7 months, and then they attach themselves and they give notes, and you incorporate the notes, and then they bail for something else and the project dies. It's like, I just want to take hold of the creative reins myself. But in this case with Urban Cowboy, the experience has been so great, so much fun from the very beginning. I'm working with my old friend, James Ponsell. We've known each other since 2003. He's the director of The Spectacular Now, if you've seen that, The End of the Tour, so many other movies. Also,
End of the Tour,
shows
so
like
terrific.
Shrinking, shows like Daisy Jones,
Yeah.
6. Like, he's just this fantastically talented, cool dude, and we're just talking almost every day about Urban Cowboy. And we're finally at a place, the writer's strike shut things down for a while.
Yeah, congratulations, by the way. So glad that went the way it should have. Yeah,
I know. It was a long fight, though. But things are starting to wake up in Hollywood again, and we've got this thing ready to go. Really happy with how, the pilot's gone through so many iterations. We've just,
oh man, I bet, yeah,
eaten the hell out of this thing and smashed it on the floor and glued it back together. And now it's just like, it's gone through the refiner's fire. I'm super excited to take it out. So it's with Paramount, but we're going to be shopping it, all over the place.
I'm happy to hear that. And, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I'm curious if there's anything else you've got on the horizon, because you're obviously kind of like Mr. Benjamin Bush, a Renaissance man in your own right. I wonder if there's any more novels coming out. I absolutely love the Comet Cycle. I think that's like just required reading for anybody that's into modern sci-fi, and like the gold rush elements that you brought into that to scratch my Western itch as well. So I just really, really love those stories.
Thank you. Yeah. And with the Comet Cycle, the Ninth Metal is the first book, and that's been, right. I adapted that into a pilot with Sony.
That's awesome.
And Sean Ryan, who's the guy behind The Shield, if you ever watched that show.
Oh, loved The Shield. Yeah.
He's behind The Night Agent. It's on Netflix right now. He's the boss of the Ninth Metal. And so it's in another situation where we're just waiting. We have the pilot ready. and we're just waiting to take it out when Hollywood awakens. And so I've got that, just sitting there humming, waiting to take off. And I'm working on a lot of film stuff because I want to go all in. Like I'm doing my damnedest to put together some feature projects that I can direct. So right now that's what I'm most jazzed about because for me, there is no more esteemed, more, fun, more coveted position than the title of horror movie director.
We couldn't agree more, man. That's why we're in the lane that we're in. And I think I mentioned it to you when I sent you that nerdy first fan letter, which is I had literally just finished reading the second issue of Final Vengeance, and we had 13th Night pop up in our film freeway, and I was like, there's no fucking way this is the same Benjamin Percy that just read the comic that I finished reading, seconds ago. So was really like, it felt too cool not to take a chance to chat with you. And thank you so much for everybody that's attending the festival in person. Benjamin will be signing copies of his books and comics. And our friends at A Little Bookish and Infinity Flux Comics are, of course, providing those. So you'll be able to get them on site. And just really, really excited for people to see this film. And what a hell of a calling card you've got to begin that journey to filmmaker. So we'll just go ahead and pre-tell you that whatever you make in the future, you've got a slot with us. If you'll have us, if you'll slum it and hang out with us again.
So excited to come to Chattanooga. And
man, well, we're excited to have
13th Night. So thank you so much for accepting it and showcasing it.
Oh, man, of course. Thanks for the time, Ben. Great talking with you.
Likewise.